All right, let's jump right in. Today we're going to do a deep dive into this whole plant-based versus animal-based diet thing. We've got some pretty cool sources lined up. Our world in data, which is going to give us like that hard data, the numbers.
Hmm.
And then we've got strength by fitness, which is coming at it from more of like a fitness and coaching perspective. So it should be interesting to see how these different perspectives kind
Yeah.
of play out.
You know what's really interesting is even though they're coming from different angles,
Yeah.
they actually have a lot in common.
Yeah.
And I think it really highlights how much our personal health is tied to like the health of the planet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And our world in data hits us with this crazy stat right off the bat. They're saying that food production is responsible for a quarter of all greenhouse gas emissions globally. That's a pretty big chunk,
Yeah,
right?
it's huge. It really makes you think about just how much power we have as consumers,
Mm-hmm.
to actually make a difference. By even just like shifting a little bit of what we eat, we can actually have a real impact on our carbon footprint. Yep.
I never thought about it like that. So, okay, let's get a little more specific. Our world in data goes on to talk about animal agriculture specifically. And they say that it uses 77% of agricultural land, but it's only producing 18% of the calories we eat and 37% of the protein. So I don't know, it kind of begs the question, like, are we really getting the most bang for our buck here?
Right. It's a big question a lot of people are asking these days. It seems like, there might be a better way to do things, maybe free up some of that land
Yeah.
and resources in the process.
Makes sense. And to really like drive that point home, our world in data breaks down the carbon footprint of different foods. Like,
Whoa.
get this, producing 1 kilogram of beef emits 60 kilograms, a CO2 equivalent. But then you look at peas and it's only 1 kilogram.
Wow.
I mean, that's a massive difference.
Yeah, when you see it like that,
Uh,
it really makes you stop and think, huh?
Totally. And, you know, there's this whole thing about eating local, which I think a lot of people do to try and reduce their impact, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But our world in data kind of busts that myth wide open. They say that transportation actually only accounts for a small part of a food's footprint. The bigger culprits are land use and farming practices.
So it's more about what you eat than necessarily where it comes from. These are the example of avocados. Like avocados shipped from far away
Huh.
still have a smaller carbon footprint than beef that's produced locally.
Huh. Interesting. So maybe we need to rethink that eat local bumper sticker. I guess air freighted foods are a different story, though.
Yeah.
But it seems like even then, shifting towards plant-based just has a way bigger overall impact.
I think so. And that kind of leads us to another interesting point. Like, sourcing sustainably is great, but maybe what we choose to eat actually matters even more. And that's where I think the perspective from Strength by Fitness is really valuable. They're coming from the world of fitness and nutrition.
Mm-hmm. And they make the point that you can absolutely have a healthy and nutritionally complete diet that's plant-based. But it does take some planning. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. It is totally possible. But you do have to be mindful of getting all the nutrients you need,
Mm-hmm.
especially protein. That could be a bit tricky for some people
Yeah,
on a plant-centered diet.
makes sense. I like that Strength by Fitness gives some advice for people who maybe aren't ready to go fully plant-based. They say like a good approach is to aim for a mix of animal and plant-based protein sources, and then just really focus on getting lots of those whole plant-based foods.
Yeah, that's a solid strategy.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, they actually back that up with research.
Yeah.
They cite a study that analyzed all these different food products and nutrients, and it turns out that plant-based meat and dairy alternatives often performed better than their animal-based counterparts,
Mm.
both in terms of nutrition and environmental impact.
Oh, wow, that's pretty compelling. Speaking of plant-based alternative, that same study actually revealed something pretty surprising about plant-based milks. What did you make of that?
Well, it turns out that oat and almond milk, which are super popular,
Mm.
might not be the best when it comes to nutrition, especially when you compare them to good old soy milk.
Really? Tell me more.
Yeah. Soy milk just seems to be a better all-around source
Mm.
of protein, essential amino acids, even minerals like calcium and iron. It's a good reminder that just because something is marketed as healthy or plant-based
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean it's the most nutritious choice. You got to do your research and, look a little deeper.
Yeah, definitely food for thought. I think a lot of people assume plant-based automatically equals healthy,
Right.
but there's definitely more to the story.
Absolutely.
It's like you really got to be a detective when you're walking down the grocery aisle these days, especially in that plant-based section.
Yeah, it's a whole new world out there. And this whole conversation about plant-based milks actually brings up a bigger point, that both our world in data and Strength by Fitness really emphasize, and that is the power of whole, unprocessed plant-based food.
Ah, so it's not just about going plant-based. It's about going for the right kind of plant-based food.
Exactly. Those fruits, veggies, legumes, whole grains, all the good stuff we know we should be eating more of.
Right, right.
And there's a good reason for that. Strength by Fitness actually talks about this study where they looks at all sorts of things, like health outcomes and environmental impact. And guess what came out on top?
I'm intrigued. Tell me.
Unprocessed plant-based foods, specifically soybeans and peas.
Wait, peas, like those little green guys are the MVPs.
You heard right. They're packed with nutrients, fiber, protein, and they're super easy on the planet, so maybe we should all be adding a few extra peas to our plates.
I love peas. This is good news.
Right.
So, okay, we've talked about reducing our impact. Our World in Data had some really interesting stats about how much we could reduce our resource use. Can you remind me what those numbers were?
Yeah, they found that by shifting to more plant-based alternatives, we could potentially reduce land use by 40 to 52%, and water usage by 38 to 39%.
Wow, that's huge.
Right.
Really shows how much power we have.
Yeah, it's not just about personal health anymore. It's about the health of the planet.
That's a good point. So I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've talked about the environmental impact of different diets, the nutritional differences between plant-based and animal-based choices, and even the importance of those whole, unprocessed foods.
It's a lot to take in, but I think the main thing is there's no one right answer. What matters is becoming more aware and making choices that work for you in your goals.
Yeah, I like that. It's about being intentional, not just blindly following trends.
Exactly.
This deep dive has really got me thinking. I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way. So as we wrap things up, what's one final thought-provoking question you'd like to leave them with? Wow, we've really been digging deep into this, huh?
Yeah, I feel like I've learned a ton.
Me too. So now that we've unpacked all of this, what would you say is the main message you hope people take away from this whole deep dive?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing is that there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to diet. It really is all about being informed and making choices that work for you. Both Our World in Data and Strength by Fitness touch on that.
Yeah, it's like we've gone from just eating to actually understanding what we're eating.
Right.
And why it matters.
Exactly.
It's not about following trends anymore. It's about making conscious choices.
I like that, conscious choices. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. You don't have to go from 0 to 60 overnight.
Right, little by little.
Yeah, like maybe you try adding more veggies to your meals. Or maybe you experiment with a new plant-based protein.
I could definitely do that.
Or, swap out one animal product for a plant-based option.
Yeah, those are all great ideas. I think it's really encouraging to hear that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's about progress, not perfection.
I love that. Progress, not perfection.
So as we wrap things up here, do you have one final question? Something thought-provoking that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Sure. So knowing what you now know about how your food choices affect your health and the environment, what one small change can you make today to start moving toward a healthier and more sustainable way of eating?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I'll be thinking about that one for a while. And hey, if you're listening and you want to dive even deeper into this whole topic, definitely check out Our World in Data and Strength by Fitness. We'll have links to those in the show notes.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore. Maybe we'll even do another deep dive on this someday.
I'd be down for that. But until then, keep your mind open, your taste buds adventurous, and remember, awareness is key. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.